Today's episode is sponsored by the American Homebrewers Association. Become a part of the U.S.'s largest community of homebrewers for just $48 a year by going to unitedwedrink.com/AHA. What exactly do you get with your AHA membership? How about a year-long subscription to Zymergy Magazine, the world's longest-running homebrew magazine? Exclusive deals and discounts at over 2,000 breweries, bars, and bottle shops across America. Discounts on Brewers publication books and merchandise. Access to a huge library of previous HomebrewCon seminars and talks. And early access to purchasing tickets to each year's Great American Beer Festival and Savor. Sign up now by going to unitedwedrink.com/AHA and get a year's membership for just $48. And if you sign up now, you'll get a free gift. What's that gift? I'm not saying. You need to go see for yourself. It's pretty great. Support United We Drink, support homebrewing, and support the American Homebrewers Association at unitedwedrink.com/AHA. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, co-workers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour? More like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a podcast that has not contributed to the nearly daily record highs of COVID cases in Florida. Welcome to United We Drink, right here on UnitedWeDrink.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mike Urevich, and planning a wedding during a pandemic in a hotspot state fucking sucks. I'm joined by my two co-hosts. First up is a man whose affinity for hard seltzer is matched only by his love of wearing gloves while drinking. Here's Phil Palmisano.
Haven't worn a glove in a number of years, so that statement is inaccurate, my friend. Oh, nice glove.
Fake
Joel.
news. Yeah. The other co-host is actually wearing a glove right now, a goalie glove,
And
it looks like.
drinking a hard seltzer, I believe.
Plural, actually. Got a long show.
I would also describe this co-host as a very questionable mixologist at best. Here is Joel Codner.
Yes. I tried what I call the devil's anus yesterday, which is basically, I don't even know, you can't even use the word bomb anymore, but I dropped a mini bottle of Malort into a giant wine glass of seltzer.
That
How was
looks... How'd it taste? Depressing?
Well, I wanted to mix it with the grapefruit, and I didn't have any cold, so I used the orange, and it wasn't bad. It obviously turns the seltzer yellow, so it's like a Chardonnay.
What's funny is that him making this drink, he was concerned about how cold the beverage was.
Justifiably so. I mean, if you're going to do it right.
And I had the worst nightmares of my life last night. I mean, I was waking up in cold sweats and breathing heavy.
So it sounds like a good night.
Oh, it was great. I'll do it 10 times out of 10.
Would recommend. Would do it again.
Yes.
So speaking of drinking, what Joel is drinking multiple seltzers. Care to plug
Truly.
which ones? Truly.
I've got a strawberry lemonade Truly hard seltzer and then the regular Truly lime.
Phil, what about you?
I am on LaCroix for this evening. I'm on my second LaCroix for health reasons this week, which we can discuss offline.
Sure. I'm having a Jolly Pumpkin Bam beer. Back available in cans down here in
Cans?
South Florida. Yeah.
Such a good beer.
It really is. It really is. I forgot. I mean, I haven't had this beer in probably 8-9 years. It's great. They also
I love the fact they're in can now instead of having to buy a 750 milliliter bottle.
And well
Yeah.
priced too. A four pack of cans was, I think, $12 for either Bam beer, Calabaza Blanca, and I'm probably mispronouncing this, but it looks like Hyrukin, which is a blood orange ginger saison.
That's
Oh,
not bad. It
Rukin!
was $9, $7.50. So that seems to be a better value in 4 16-ounce cans.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So, since the last episode, our state's become a shit show.
Understatement.
Understatement
worse
of the
shit
year. Because people are like, yeah, Florida, of course. Just this past Friday, our bars in the state were shut down once again, given no notice, announced via tweet.
No. No notice is not fair to the department that came down with that. They gave about an hour's notice, all right? So change your plans within the hour, all right? They gave an hour.
That's plenty of time for last call.
Which, yeah, so this forced all breweries, tasting rooms to shut down unless they are serving food that consisted of more than 50% of their sales, which is probably not many breweries out there. I know it's not all, but there's not many of them. And like, I felt awful when around like 1:30, whenever we finally got clarification on this, my boss had to go walk out into the tap room and tell a handful of people who were there just having a beer, hey, sorry, state shut us down. You gotta close your tab. You can take stuff to go. Like, that has to be one of the most awkward situations to just tell some people, like, you didn't do anything wrong. We appreciate your business, but you gotta go home because we're not allowed to do this.
Yeah, I think it's par for the course at this point in time, unfortunately. I saw an Instagram post from one of the breweries in the state, basically said, because of the shit that we all know that's going on, we can only run these certain hours. I hate to say it, but I think as the general public, and speaking on behalf of the general public, which I like to speak for the entire state of Florida when I speak.
Phil is the official spokesperson of the entire state of Florida. Or unofficial.
He's Florida
whichever.
man.
Better than some. But I mean, I think you have to be slightly understanding at this point in time when somebody says, like, hey, unfortunately, we got to close. They can't get mad at, any proprietor specifically because it's well above their head. So, yeah, and this time you're not allowed to have the food truck exception, which originally the food truck exception allowed some of these tasting rooms to partner up with local businesses and serve food and keep their tasting room open at the same time. Because it has to be 50% of your business, the food truck exception is null and void.
Wonder if there's any breweries that are looking to purchase food trucks at this point in time.
What if
wonder
you
if
just
it would
serve
have
on
to
the
be
food truck?
physically fixed to the actual establishment, though. When when they have to have,
I would assume as long
a
as it's
restaurant
on
license.
your, yeah, I mean, yes, you would. But I know different municipalities work differently. Like in Boynton Beach, the food truck permitting thing is like the trucks have to get permitted, and also any establishment that has a food truck has to buy a permit as well. So you can't just like invite a random truck to come set up across the street from like our brewery, which has happened before. But it's, I don't know. Like if you buy a truck and it has all of its licensing and it's on your property, I mean, the trucks are still inspected by health officials. So I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, not legal advice. So it would be interesting to see. I mean, I've seen places that have food trucks in them as a motif for their places, but they're in essence a kitchen. this also came, was it a day after Palm Beach County instituted a mask mandate? I know Broward and Dade have already had theirs in place. And so it's coming hot and heavy again because people are being fucking stupid out there.
Well, we
Selfish.
talked about it.
Yeah.
Yes, selfish, 100%. We talked about it, when I traveled the state 2 weeks ago. I did Fort Myers, Naples, Fort Myers, Tampa, Orlando, and what was it, a month ago? I did this basically the same route without Orlando, and no one's wearing masks for the most part on the other coast of the state. You go into pockets where you see people being intelligent and protecting themselves and others, which is what you do when you wear a mask out in public. But then, no lie, you can cross the street and it's a completely different atmosphere. I really think that it's going to be more impactful when you look at those communities, Orlando, Tampa, Naples, Fort Myers, to see these changes come so drastically quick.
Yeah, it's surprising that some of those counties aren't the necessarily hot spots of the state yet, maybe, as opposed to Dade and Broward. But yeah, we know the jokes that are being said at the state. It comes with the territory. But yeah.
The funniest thing I thought about that unanimous vote was the picture that they put in the news of the vote. So they vote unanimously to wear masks, yet only some of the people voting are wearing masks.
On the city council, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was my
Lead by
anniversary.
example.
What?
Lead by example.
Well, it was my anniversary yesterday. My wife's favorite dessert is cheesecake, so I stopped into a cheesecake factory to take some to go. Had a mask on, kept my distance, but there are just all these families with kids walking in, and sure, they're wearing masks, but as soon as they serve that fucking bread, you're taking that mask off, and you're going to probably be there for the next hour and a half. So, what are you doing? Like, just take it to go, you selfish piece of shit. I know, it's Boca and most families can't stand each other, but just take a meal to go, sit together, get to know each other, learn your kids' names, what they like,
Take away the iPads and...
Yeah. Or just strap the iPad to their face and keep it covered.
To the parents' face?
Everyone's face. Just, yeah.
Well, this week, there also was several layoffs at the BA, correct?
Yeah, that was quite I mean, there were some layoffs back in, I want to say, March or April. Who knows? They're all the same month anymore to me. But it was, I'm pulling up the article right now. A number of key members, including Julia Hers, who was at the time the craft beer program director, and Acacia Coast, who was the State Brewers Guild manager. I know I've worked with Acacia a couple times from her work with the Florida Brewers Guild down here at like the guild festivals specifically, and they're both long-time employees at the Brewers Association, so it's pretty surprising to see such long-time and key members being laid off.
Sadly, a ripple effect of what is going on right now, and not being able to do key fundraising things for the BA, such as Great American Beer Festival. I imagine all of that has to do with the way that the BA is having to rearrange and reassess business. Speaking
they
of
lost
GABF,
CBC and all that.
Did you guys see the GABF email that came out where they're setting up key discounts with state breweries across the United States, and you can buy a limited edition GABF shirt to support the BA, and it actually has the date, basically stating that you purchased it during the COVID crisis.
No shit.
This is for general public, not brewers.
Yeah, general public.
Okay.
The email went out because we purchased tickets personally. It showed up on my email on Friday, I believe it was. So
No, I didn't see that.
yeah,
I know that they're
cool
still
little
going
fundraiser for the
forward.
BA.
I know they're still going forward with the competition, at least last I heard, which should be interesting because that usually relies on a lot of brewers who fly out for the festival to be in Colorado to do that. So I'm kind of wondering how they're going to do that this year. I assume a lot of people who are typical judges won't want to fly out for safety precautions. So it'll be like all Colorado people handling it. Be intrigued to know how they're handling that this year.
Yeah, on the GABF side, it's a passport program. So you can go around and you can purchase your passport, and your passport gets you discounts to local breweries. And there's a combo package where you can buy just the passport, or combo package where you can buy the t-shirt, and they have a men's and a women's version, as well as the passport, or you can buy the t-shirt individually or the passport individually. So they
it's
are
kind
still
of like, sorry.
they're trying to find ways to make money and trying to be creative. That's their largest money maker on the calendar year.
Sounds a little like the AHA membership deals that members get there. Sponsor of the show, American Homebrewers Association.
The shirt's pretty sweet. I'm ordering it right now. It's kind of like a heather blue, and it says Brew United on it. I think if you get one of those and truly maximize the experience, walk into one of the participating breweries, drop a plastic cup on the floor, and then ask them if they want anything.
There you go. Done.
Did you also drop?
What's the strongest beer you have on hand?
Yeah, be sure to take plenty of edibles too.
So I guess coming soon to our own store will be Brew United We Drink shirts.
Little IP infringement there.
Yeah. Well, if you're gonna go big. All right. So, anyone else have anything to say about the Brewers Association stuff before we move on?
No, it's just it's really unfortunate, man, and hopefully, I mean, we're not even in a goddamn second wave. We've just sort of been riding the first wave and barely keeping our heads above water. So, people got to wear a goddamn mask and just make the fucking sacrifice so we can eventually get back to normal. We can't get back to normal just because we're tired of this.
Yeah.
We got to get back to normal because it's over.
Touché. So the topic for today's episode is an interesting one. Just something that came to me strangely one day. Q&A was something that we did on our mini episodes when we were doing those. And those are fun to get some questions from you, the listeners, and be able to answer them and just have some nice little interaction with you. We're going to do some Q&A today, but we're going to provide the Q and the A to each other. So Phil has some questions for us. Joel, some questions for us. I have some questions for them, both individually and collectively. So here, I'll start this off since I came up with the idea for this. And this question is specifically for Phil. So
Yes. That's my answer.
Have you ever seen that IRI data seem to get something wrong about a trend? And also, as a follow-up, is there something that you saw on IRI that maybe took you longer to react to than you should have?
Typically, no. IRI data it's scan data. So whenever someone purchases a package at your large grocer, liquor store, etc., and that item is actually scanned, the data goes in. So rarely would IRI data be wrong in what IRI data is reporting. Now, I
I
guess
meant more towards like the trends using IRI data
Yeah,
that say, hey, this is hot right now because of IRI scans.
there's always going to be some type of odd situation that comes out of trends in particular. How many hibiscus beers came out based off of Rheingeist popularity and scan data behind bubbles specifically. It looked like it was going to be a hot trend. These pink beers that were sessionable, they sort of played in that rosé category, and brewers started taking to it. We did sort of see that rosé beer category just sort of flatten out real quick. Same thing when you look at some of these like brute IPAs. You'll get and where the issue is typically a larger brewery or a larger conglomerate will be able to produce a beer, and based off of how much they actually sell, they can cram it into a set, and it's like, oh, here's the brand new insert high-end brewery name beer, and then it goes on sale because the larger companies have the money to basically back those, and you get inaccurate scan data because people are trying it because it's on BOGO. For example, down here we had Karbach. When Karbach got launched in Florida, it was BOGO. And Karbach, the scan data showed that Karbach in particular was doing pretty well when you look at dollars per scan. That's great. That's fantastic. But at the same time, if you didn't know the context behind why they were performing so well because they were on a BOGO, then you would just expect them to be a hot commodity. And a year later, they're no longer in the sets. So there are some weird things like that, inaccuracies when you're looking at trends, both on style and on brand. But outside of that, IRI is pretty good at what it reports. And you typically can look at sales on their chart level and sort of see where their spikes are and where their dips are. And typically those spikes are going to be programming, discounting, BOGOs, etc. I think the hardest part, and just like everything in life, if you're only looking at one track for your information, then you're limited to just that. If you open up, where you're compiling your information from and gathering your data, then you're going to have a clearer picture of the entire industry as a whole, instead of just looking at what's scanning at grocery. That answer your question?
Yeah, and then the follow up was, have in any of your time with working with this, have you seen something pop up that was trending and we're like, we don't know if we want to necessarily believe that, and it ended up being something, and you kind of not missed the boat, but were maybe a little late to the party?
Well, I can't. I can only speak for myself. I personally thought hazy IPAs were going to be a flash in the pan, just like the Cascadian dark ales of the past. I was wrong. IRI data was showing that they were still catching steam. They still are catching steam. For the longest time, probably up until about a year, maybe a year and a half ago, I really thought that they were brewery only, never going to take off. They weren't anything huge. But, when you look at IRI in particular, you can see Sierra Nevada, hazy little thing, just spiking. Like, it's insane. And, so I think when you look at both, I hesitated on hazy IPAs, but I also think that some retailers were hesitating on hazy IPAs because they were a little cautious getting into that. I think we're going to see a lot more shelf-stable hazy IPAs in the future in grocery and retail.
Nice. That was a great answer to both of those parts of the question.
Well, thank you.
I'm glad to finally learn what IRI means after us talking about it for 10 months now.
What IRI, the acronym, means, because I don't think he said that.
We should call it IRI.
I'm glad I was able to further your comprehension, Joel.
Phil, how about you shoot out a question?
I got a question for both of you guys, and this is more for the listeners more so than me, because I know the answer to this, but I'm curious to sort of see where you guys take it. How did you guys get involved into craft beer? When did you get involved? And did you ever see yourself in the positions that you are in today? And we can start with Joel.
So, my beginnings have kind of a strange start. It was at my uncle's funeral. Sitting there in the front row, just looking at the casket and going, oh my God, like life is so fleeting and I better branch out and learn new things and meet new people and stuff like that. And I was actually thinking about getting into wine, but my wife got pregnant and I was like, well, I'm not going to drink an entire bottle of wine by myself. And then lo and behold, all the good beers are in giant 750s at the time. So it was kind of pointless anyway. But, my cousin, who was the son of the uncle who had died, was always telling me about Belgian beers and kind of broadened my horizons. So I tried a bunch of Belgian beers, and this was when Twitter was really getting going. So I put something out there that said, hey, just, looking for beer recommendations and stuff like that. Somehow our friend of the show, Ed Roberts from Total Wine and More, found me and sort of mentored me into it, recommended some mixed six-packs to check out and introduce new styles. And then, just got into beer ever since. And back then it was a beer wasteland here. There was really nowhere to go as far as breweries, maybe one or two brew pubs. But lots of gastropubs popping up, lots of little beer bars, where I, met you guys, and Funky Buddha Lounge, that kind of stuff, Coffee District. And, we just, like a brewery getting distributed here, for the first time was a huge deal. I remember, when Flying Dog first came here and I, ran to the store and got everything they offered just to try new things because we had such limited options here at the time. So when one of the first breweries in the county was opening up, I jumped at the chance to just kind of 10 bar a couple times a month and make some extra cash, kind of just being part of the environment, and got really into it. And less than a year later, I quit my miserable cubicle job and jumped in full time, starting at the bottom, washing kegs, and worked my way up to head brewer over several years, and that was 2 breweries ago. So it's crazy how things progress. And to answer the question about if I thought I'd ever be where I am now, the answer is absolutely not.
Same as Joel. My craft beer, I guess, introduction was, I can't remember what year it was, probably 2006, around there. I was visiting some family in PA, and my cousin was like, hey, let's go to this bar. And I was like, all right, cool. So I went with him to this bar called Isaac Newton's in Newtown, PA. And he's like, hold on, let me get you the menu. I'm like, all right. And he hands me a binder. And I'm like, what's this? He's like, that's the beer menu. I'm like, what? And it is just pages and pages of bottles, and like the draft, I think they have like 20 drafts on there. And I was just like, I didn't know what I was looking at. So I just kind of left it up to him. He was like, well, do you do you like Guinness? I was like, yeah, I don't mind Guinness. It's good. Because I was at that point, I drank Yingling Lager, and it was just like a more flavorful thing than like, even at that time, I was like, Bud Light, it's not really a thing for me. Sam Adams and Yingling, even though those are technically craft beers, I was drinking those, but just thought that they were just your everyday normal beer. Didn't know anything about craft beer really at this point. And he's like, all right, I got you. And he goes up and orders, and he comes back with a bottle and a glass of Samuel Smith oatmeal stout. And I was like, holy crap, this is really good. I was like, it actually has an oatmeal-like taste to it. It's not like in your face, but like it's such full-bodied, rich flavors. I'm like, okay, cool. And then he went and got me, he's like, all right, I'm going to step you up now. He got me Old Rasputin after that. That was a bit of a kick in the pants, but that started me on it. The Total Wine and More in Boynton Beach opened maybe a month or so before or after that. I can't remember. And then I started finding myself in the beer aisle making a bunch of mixed six packs. When Joel was saying about Flying Dog coming down here, I remember when Stone came down here. Like, I had heard and read about Stone and Arrogant Bastard, and I was like, oh, I get to try this Arrogant Bastard beer. And I was like, this is so good. Then I started the beer blog, and I started meeting folks like you at the places Joel mentioned, Coffee District in Delray, the old Buddha Lounge in Boca, and the Lodge in Boca, R.I.P.
Wow.
And doing the podcast thing, and then practically got into the industry the same way Joel did, bartending a few days a week at the same brewery. There was at a point that where Joel and I were working like every other Saturday with each other behind the bar, and then got a full-time gig there, left IT. Not that I was miserable working in web hosting. I made good money, and I liked the company that I worked for. I just wanted to get more involved with beer. And am I where I thought I'd be? No. Is that good or bad? I don't know. I don't really know where I thought that I would see myself back when I got into the industry. I can't remember if I had a thought on that, but I kind of like it better not knowing where I'm going, because if I knew where I was going, I'd just go there and catch up with myself later.
Very nice.
Kind of a riff
Thank
on a
you, guys.
Hedberg joke there. Joel, you got a question?
I do. So, and this was more toward Mike, but I guess, Phil can be involved as well. The industry seems to have an issue with, and this isn't in everybody's case. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's one of those unfortunate kind of flaws where, it seems like in many cases there isn't proper compensation. You got a lot of hardworking people making, barely a living wage. We saw someone that we know, I won't name names, I don't want to put them out there or anything, even though they mentioned it publicly, I'll keep their name out of it, but, we saw someone this week that we know online say, hey, I'm going to get onto the industry for a little bit because, my wife's kind of the breadwinner, and I'm going to let her focus on her career, and I'm going to step back and be a stay-at-home parent and all this. So, it seems like this brewery just kind of has this issue where it's kind of notoriously underpaying and under benefiting or whatever you want to call it. And
the industry, you said this brewery.
Sorry, the industry. So, and it's frustrating because, you see people who go through it. I talk to a lot of people privately who express concerns about it, and they wonder, they love it so much, but they wonder if, they just have to get out of it for those types of reasons. So I guess my question to you guys is, what do you think can be done, if anything, about kind of improving compensation, benefits, things of that nature? Are we really stuck leaving it, brewery to brewery, or is there something kind of as a whole that could be done to do a little better for the people who make the industry work?
I think that there's a lot of brewery owners who need to bring their expectations into reality. I think that with what I mean by that is you have a lot of people who want to get big fast, and that means you need to produce a lot. To produce a lot, you need to have people working for you. Well, in order to have that many people working for you and not be making a whole lot of money as a company, you need to pay them less money than what they probably are due for working a hard manual labor job that is also dangerous. And that's the thing with this industry. Brewing beer has become this romantic type of job. It's looked at as artistic, and that you're an artist by making beer and creating something like this, creating a culture, creating something that's a meeting place for your community, and it doesn't commonly get looked at as an industrial manufacturing job, which it pretty much is. And I mean, we went on about like how they forget about safety concerns a lot in a previous episode, but because of those things, people want to get involved in this industry so much that they're willing to get paid pretty poorly for hard jobs, working many hours overtime in a dangerous environment just to do something artistic and create something. And that's a problem. I think a colleague of mine who worked for a previous brewery had his boss tell him, like, I have people literally banging down my door to come work here. If you don't want to do this, I'll find someone who will for less money than you. That's fucked up. And like, it's almost to the point of like, we're close to damn near sweatshop child labor stuff with the way some of these owners act. And I'd be lying if I said that I didn't consider leaving the industry at certain points. I mean, I took 6 months off at one point because I was burnt out. I wasn't making terrible money at that time, but I was just burnt out on the industry. The work environment I was at was poor, and I just needed a break mentally, and slowly got myself back into it. And now it's like I'm getting married. I want to buy a house with my fiance, and it's like all these things that you need some more money for, and it's like working on a passion doesn't pay my bills. It's something that like I feel like if you cannot afford to bring on the 3 people that you need to run your brew house to reach your goals and pay them adequately well, you probably shouldn't be making that much beer, because you should be paying the people who work there a good wage for the work that they're putting in. And if that means making less beer, then you need to find other places where you cut your costs, because it sounds like your budgeting's all out of whack.
And it also feels like it's one of those things that the industry just kind of thinks it can get away with in certain cases. Like, we're not corporate, so we can do this and that. Like, we're we can be a little bit more laid back. We're not going to, we're not going to have benefits. We're not going to have all these things. Just in the same sense, you kind of get the vibe from some of these breweries like, yeah, it's okay that our tap room's a shithole because that's the charm of it. And I feel like with 8,000 breweries now and so many more people in the industry and it growing at such a rapid rate with not a commensurate rate of educated or experienced people filling those roles, it feels like it's one of those things where it's just like the industry thinks it can kind of get away with that. And it with this many now, it doesn't feel like that's a proper excuse anymore.
And one last thing, what you said there, so many times people throw out the, well, that's the industry average. Well, be better. Like, if the entire industry is sucking at paying people, then of course the numbers are fucking skewed towards that. Like, better. Like, just because if say there's 9,000 breweries, I don't know how many there are anymore. I've stopped paying attention to that. Say 8,000 breweries are highly underpaying their people. 500 are doing a little bit better and 500 are doing above better. Like, the numbers are still going to be super skewed. Like, fuck that. I don't want to say, like, be one of those people, well, these people in these jobs make more money than that and don't work in such a dangerous, like, I know what I'm doing. I signed up for it. I'm trying not to sound like I don't appreciate what I have, but this is an industry that really needs to look at compensation of their employees, the people who they call family in a lot of cases, and help take care of them a little better.
I would love to really dive down every tiny wormhole that I think this conversation could be punched. Main thing is you guys said it, there's too many breweries, there are a ton of breweries. Some of these breweries are being opened not because of passion projects that, Joel, you want to open up a brewery because you've been brewing beer and you want to do something on your own. It's sometimes these are, this is my retirement. Here it is. Here's my brewery. And I think when people are trying to get into this industry sheerly for the business aspect of it, because there's so many people, I want to be an owner of a brewer. Or a brewery. Are you a brewer? No, I'm not a brewer. I'm going to hire a brewer. Okay. Then at that point in time, you should have to pay that brewer proper compensation. The BA does release average pay on their website every year. So something to look at. You jump over to the Brewers Association and look at it. And if you're unaware of what the industry pays, you can actually sort of see based off of the position, based off of how many barrels the brewery produces, etc. That's the other thing is for us as an industry to move to better paid positions across the entire brew house and within sales, you have to be able to produce enough beer to sustain the salaries of those individuals while also being able to increase capacity in your facility. So, and it's costly. It's specifically in an industry where the margins are very thin. So there's a price war going on. There's people that are getting into this industry because they think it's a quick way to make money. Everybody wants to be the next Treehouse. I'm going to sell everything through my tasting room. It's probably not going to happen. So I think that there's a reality check that needs to happen in the industry, and at that point in time, the reality check will then allow, hopefully, more of a clear transparency of pay and how we can get better.
All right. Those satisfying answers, Joel?
I'd like a little more information. No, no, that's a lot of great perspective, especially what Phil said.
Yeah, Phil's made a ton of great points. Like, yeah,
we could spend an entire hour-long episode just on that topic, because there is
maybe it should be.
There's
something
so many
for-
other things that are in play. I mean, the pricing war alone is horrible. And then if you look at the 3-tier system and which tier is making the most profit when you look at that, I'm not here to point fingers at either tier outside of the supplier tier, but when you do look at the margins are very thin across the board, both for supplier, wholesaler, and even retailer in some degrees. Pricing wars are dangerous, and unfortunately we are in an industry with a pricing war, very strong pricing war.
Joel, this question is for just you. You have said a number of times that you're never done learning in this industry and you're constantly learning new things. With that said, what are some things that you are really wanting to learn more about in this industry?
Well, I would say one of those things, my weak point is water chemistry. It's just, like if you have those 4 brewery books, beer, hops, water, yeast, and malt, like it's terrifying to even open the water one. And, 4 years ago when I was at Siebel, thanks to the Florida Brewers Guild, for 2 weeks, like one of the very first classes was water chemistry taught by Ray Daniels, and it's like, holy shit. But at the same time, it's insanely intimidating and very hard to, I mean, it's, like malt, you can kind of, it's like especially when you've worked with it, it's like, okay, like I know what Turo is. I know what the caramel malts are. I know about rye and wheat and oats and flaked corn and flaked rice and all these different adjuncts and things. And the way you can introduce different sugars like dextrose and lactose. And even with hops, hops are always a learning experience and they're always coming out with new experimental things. But like, and, yeast, Jesus Christ, like yeast feels like it's honestly more approachable than water because it's like, oh, you think half yeast, what sort of, flavors and things that produces at varying temperatures, are you getting more banana or clove, yeasts almost feel so much more approachable than water because like, you're talking about ions and cations and fucking hard water, soft water, all the different salts and reverse osmosis and all these different, to me it's just very intimidating, and it's something that I really want to get more into because now having worked at 3 different breweries in 3 completely different locations with 3 completely different filtration systems, it's something that you're constantly having to adjust. You can, you're always adjusting your alpha acids when you're getting different hops and you're looking at your malt analyses and all those sorts of things, cell counts with yeast. But, when you change water and filtration from brewery to brewery, it freaks you out a little bit. And that's something that I definitely want to really dive more into. Just knowing it's one of my weak spots. I would really love to learn more about the kind of business and sales side of it. I think that's really Phil's super strong point, and I feel like I always learn something from him every episode when it comes to that. Personally, like that kind of stuff bores the shit out of me. Like I like the crafting of the beer and the creative side of it, whether it's, coming up with different flavors or brewing new things, having a fun story behind it, naming it is something I really love. But I just completely suck at the business and the sales side of it. Like I don't know shit, and I immediately tune out as soon as I start hearing about it. So, but I know it's something I'm going to need to know. So, I really want to keep learning. And, when I tell people there's no like level 100 brewer, it's because I want them to know that, don't get arrogant, stay humble, and remember that you're always going to have to learn new shit. There's always going to be new ingredients, new processes, new styles. And, if you settle into your comfort zone, you're going to fall behind real quick.
Awesome. Phil, You have another question?
Question for you both, but in different aspects. So, what, in your opinion, both of you have worked for smaller breweries on the uprise. Mike, what is the most important thing for a small brewery to get right on the marketing side first? And then Joel, what is the most important thing for a small brewery to get right on the production side?
I'll let Joel go first.
Okay. So what to get right on the production side? Obviously, that's beer. Obviously, it's cleanliness, process. Hire a professional. If you are one of these breweries, like Phil mentioned earlier, that is in it for the trend. Like, I've often compared some of these people, one of whom I've worked for, to someone who 10 years ago would have opened a fucking self-serve frozen yogurt shop or a gourmet cupcake bakery in a strip mall somewhere. You know, a lot of people just seem like they're cashing in on trends. So if you don't know shit about beer, you better hire someone who does and get the beer right off the bat. If you need to get your system in line and work out the kinks, dump that initial shitty beer if it's bad. Like, you have one shot for a first impression, and that's just not on your first day, that's every day. You have new people coming in all the time. This is their first chance trying your beer. Maybe some beer geek grabbed their macro-loving friend and brought them to your brewery, and this is somebody's first try at craft beer. And we're so ingrained in this industry that we often forget what it's like on the outside. Like, everyone, just like with coffee, everyone still thinks it's, just the commercial Budweiser, Miller Coors, Maxwell House, Starbucks, and people are not exposed to all the good stuff we know about. So when you try to introduce someone to it and they immediately get turned off by some horrifically defective beer or just something with horrific alcohol burn or too bitter, or brewers need to remember that bitter and sour are acquired tastes. These are not something that we experience often with everything else. Like, where else are you going to really get IBUs and shit like that? Yeah, there's spicy and peppery and hot and savory and sweet, but these other things people aren't often used to, and they are so prevalent in the industry now. I mean, even someone with a sweet tooth might be turned off by a pastry stout. So you've got to get the beer right. And if you're like a brew pub like I used to work for and can keep it rotational, consistency may not be the most highest priority, as far as because if you're rotating, like 6 months between two different, let's say you brew like the same IPA 6 months apart, like if you keep it similar, it's fine and it's good. Just keep it high quality. It doesn't have to be biochemically identical to the one you made 6 months ago, because no one's going to remember. But if you're making fucking Budweiser, like, yeah, it should taste the same on every continent you go to. So, like I said, just hire someone who knows beer, can produce quality, consistency, not taking shortcuts. And then, I mean, there's still 1,000 other things you need to work on too. But as far as the production side, yeah, get the beer right.
As for from a marketing standpoint, I would say when you're thinking about your brand before you're creating it, think about how you will differentiate yourself from all the other breweries. Then take those ideas and throw them away because they're probably not unique. I think that's one of the biggest issues right now is everyone wants to say, I'm local, I'm independent. Okay, so is the person down the street, and then the other way as well. There's too many breweries to where local is not a marketing thing anymore. Almost anyone has access to a local beer. That shouldn't be part of your brand identity. And almost everything else everyone's coming up with is handmade, handcrafted, with passion, with love, blah 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 blah
artisanal,
blah blah blah. Yeah, like none of that's unique. And if you're fine with not being unique in that sense, that's cool. You can come up with other ways to differentiate yourself, but you really need to differentiate yourself from everyone else to make you stand out. Because really, when it all boils down to it, you're all making beer, you're all local, you're all independent, and you're all looking for those same people. Because let's face it, that window of people from the macro side has gotten way smaller. The people that you're trying to convert from wine or spirits, that window's gotten way smaller, if not gotten near closed. Like, you're competing for the same people, and you want those people who go to the brewery down the street to the left and the brewery down the street to your right to come to you more often. You need to stand out. And like what Joel said, beer is very important, but just making your voice be something that has never been heard before, I think is super important.
Would you say that's more important than a logo or even a name?
I think that both of those are important. I mean, and probably equally so, because you could have a great tone and voice and plan, but if your brewery's name is Bobo's Brewing Company, then who's going to take you seriously? And you know what? Like, if you don't have a designer, if you're not a designer, or you don't have a designer who can do like your logo work for you, then investing in getting a real professional looking logo and brand identity before you even open your doors is probably going to be one of the best investments that you can make. You might think like, oh, we don't have any money coming in, we can't afford to spend that. If you don't have any market like budget in your funds to create stuff like that initially, you probably shouldn't be opening a brewery. Like, I mean, we got called out for this on one of our happy hours before that about Joel and I's ambitions at opening a brewery. And believe me, I've worked on a lot of design work for this little project, and I'm still completely open to having another design company come in and work on stuff, paying local artists to do stuff, because with the idea requires some, like what we would want to create requires a little more skill than what I have. And I think that brand identity, logo, and name are all important, but like that brand identity is what's going to separate you from the rest.
Well, your brand identity could almost dictate your logo or your name eventually.
Absolutely.
And if I could just tack onto that a little bit, you need to ask yourself when you've decided on a name and a logo and all that kind of stuff, you got to, literally look in the mirror and go, does anyone care about this? There are some weird named places that, they're named just because of where they are. And sometimes they can be hard to pronounce, or sometimes they're in locations that just don't relate to other places. Maybe they're more middle America and not East Coast, West Coast, that kind of thing. Yeah, I remember one time at the last brewery I was working at, which had a palm tree logo. An owner of a brewery with another palm tree logo came in, and I actually thought he was a guy from another brewery with a palm tree logo. So, especially here in Florida, you get a lot of this nautical, coastal, ocean, this, that, like
beach and
right. And it just all starts getting redundant after a while. And maybe that's just something that we're kind of used to being here, because like everywhere you go, it's like sunny this and palms that. So it gets pretty redundant. And I think you've really got to sit back and think to yourself, like, is this going to identify with anyone? Do they care about it? And then you have some people on the other extreme who have these like super wacky names. And even though, the industry is growing and everything, like I still have a weird time like looking at some of these brewery names and going, am I going to be saying that brewery name in 20, 30 years, like Sierra Nevada or Sam Adams? and you probably, just as a rule of thumb at this point in 2020 with this many breweries, probably try to stay away from dogs, trees, fish, boats, compasses. I mean, like, I feel like you might as well just go into Microsoft Word and pull up Wingdings and just pick something. No more twisted, crooked, wicked, whack. Like, come on. We got millions of words.
All right. So we're running really long on this one. So Joel, last question. Do you have one?
For me. Yes.
Yeah.
So let's, and this is for both of you real quick. If both of your bosses come to you tomorrow and say, hey, we're eliminating your position. We're not eliminating you, but we're just getting rid of whatever it is that you do. And no questions asked. Choose another position here. What do you go? What do you go to?
Oh.
Wow.
And you have 2 seconds to decide or you're fired.
Can I go to a different department in sales, or are they just eliminating sales?
No, we're not selling beer anymore.
Oh,
pick something.
Okay, all right. I if you're not selling beer anymore, I'd probably quit because your business isn't gonna last very long. I honestly, I would really like to go into HR. It sounds funny and weird, and you guys definitely have known me for way too long. I am intrigued in the training aspect of this industry, and development of, be it taproom employees or, cellarman production side. I know the last place you would want me is on the brew deck.
How does that work for me when I am in the cellar?
Just say you're
and marketing.
Just go marketing.
But I'm way more seller than I am marketing.
Well, if they eliminate cellaring, then again, you have more problems than just them eliminating cellar. Say they hired a marketing firm and they are farming out your marketing position. Where do you want to go?
I want to be what everyone always asks. You got any taste tester positions open?
QA/QC. I like that.
Sensory. All right.
I probably bar. I don't want to be on the brew deck. Like it's not that I go as negative as Phil. It's like, you don't want me on the brew deck. I don't want to be there. Like, and I don't want to be in the sales market either. I know that I have the capabilities of doing both of those jobs. I just don't want to. They're either stressful, way more stressful than I want to be, or I just don't think. I just mentally can't do it. I think I would be a bad salesperson because I'm awkward as fuck to strangers.
Speaking of, I do want to get back into brewing, and I've inquired about sort of getting my brew equipment back from the individual that's holding it, which is he's like, yeah, it's still in my garage, nobody's using it, so I don't even know what's in there, if it's working, if it isn't working. But yeah, I definitely want to get back into brewing. Cathartic,
awesome,
to say the least.
Maybe we'll have a socially distanced brew day someday.
Yeah.
All right. So I thought that was fun. That was a lot of fun. Definitely got some rants going on there.
Hopefully you enjoyed it as well, audience.
Yeah. And if you ever want to hear us talk about, ask us questions, shoot us over. Shoot them over to us. Don't shoot us. We like questions like that. Does anyone have a last call? Because I really didn't think of one for this week.
I have a last call / recommendation.
Go ahead.
Check out the movie 7500 on Amazon Prime Video. It's a very intense film. basically about a plane hijacking starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who I actually don't like. I think he gets way too ambitious roles and fails miserably, whether it's Cobra Commander or fucking Robin in, The Dark Knight or whatever. So, but really, really good movie. Super intense. Everything takes place, within a couple hours, and there's really just one setting, and that's the cockpit of the plane. So, you rarely see hijacking movies from that perspective, but super intense movie, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Phil?
I watched the new movie with Will Ferrell last night, Eurovision, I think is what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not horrible. So that's my recommendation. Not horrible. But it actually my wife and I had a conversation at the end of the movie. They're singing this song that I won't ruin the movie, but they're singing this song, and when
someone says I'm not going to ruin a movie, they are ruining the movie.
Okay, well, the whole movie is them singing songs. Eurovision is like America's Got Talent or like The Voice or something like that. And at the end of the movie, Dina and I looked at each other and we said, this could go viral. And so I was like, yes, you're 100% right. And typically she is. But I'll be very curious to see if that song in particular starts charting at any point in time. It's worth a watch. It's somewhat funny.
Yeah, we watched the trailer this morning, and seems fun.
It's different.
Joel won't watch it. He hates Will Ferrell.
I do not hate Will Ferrell. I just need him in short bursts. I can't have him starring in a film. Like old school supporting character, great. But I can't take 2 hours of Will Ferrell just yelling and screaming like he does in every movie. I almost ended a very important friendship over Talladega Nights because I had a friend come over. He tried to put it on. I threw something. He called me a fucking asshole and left, and we didn't speak for months. So yeah,
it's the same character. It's just a movie about Icelandic singing. So
it's like Ben Stiller playing some neurotic guy that just can't help but fuck up everything. Oh, and happy birthday, Mel Brooks.
Plugs, Phil.
You can find me on Instagram at ppalmasano77 and on Twitter at Dos
Florida DUH Brewer on Instagram and Twitter.
And you can find me at Mike Loves Beer on Instagram and Twitter. The show is on Twitter at United We Drink, on Instagram at United We Drink Pod. We're also on Facebook as well. And you can always find the show on any of those major streaming services, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, all of them. Also, our website, UnitedWeDrink.com. You can buy a shirt, sticker, button, and lots of other cool stuff on our web store, UnitedWeDrink.com/store. For these guys, we'll see you in a couple weeks with a brand new episode. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear a fucking mask. Cheers.
See you. Yeah, for sure. There's different there's anomalies.
Anomalies.
Yeah, thank you. There's I can't say the fucking word.
Phenomenal.
This is going in the post credits.
Yeah, absolutely.